All right, Allison, so you and I have been friends for quite a while, and I know you've had a bit of struggle with your faith, belief in God. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I do.
All right. That's okay. I believe that if anyone ever wants to truly be strong in their faith, they need to question it every once in a while. If you never question your faith, then it's just kind of immature faith. So one question for you, though, before we get started. Have you been baptized?
I have.
All right. Do you remember when you were baptized? What year?
I think 2010.
Okay, so that's about 9 years. Well, like I said, you've been baptized for a long time. You've kind of been exposed to real adult, real world situations. So you're gonna know what it's like to doubt your faith every now and then. And I think it is important, once again, so that way whenever you come out of it, you'll be stronger. So I have a lesson here that I'd like to go over with first, and I'd like you to pay attention to these 5 questions, because I want you to redraw this diagram that I'm going to be telling you verbally once we're done. First question. Really simple, just kind of got to get it out of the way. Does the universe exist?
Yes.
All right. Second question, did the universe have a beginning, a finite point that it started at?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a plan for the universe? Like when you look outside and you see everything, do you think, okay, there has to be a set of systems that were put in place, or do you think it was random? So just answer the question yes or no, was there a plan?
Yes.
All right. So then, now that you've acknowledged that there was a plan, would you say that there was a planner, a creator?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so then does that planner, that creator, precede the existence of the universe?
Yeah.
All right, so you have a basic understanding in broad strokes of God. You basically confirm that God does exist in broad terms. So what I have is a couple verses that are going to help contextualize what I've just had you answer, each of the questions that I've answered, except for the first one. It's kind of a simplistic one. And I'm going to have you read them out loud, and then I'm going to, I know, it's going to be, you'll be fine, but I'm going to have you read them out loud, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about them. So I've marked them, talked to you previously about that. All right, so the first one is Genesis 1 through 2.
Okay. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters.
So right off, that is a verse that does tell us what the beginning was. So did the universe have a beginning? Yeah, obviously, yes, that's the answer. Truthfully, any of these scriptures could work for that first question, did the universe have a beginning? But obviously, I just kind of wanted to go with the simplest one. So the next one is John 1 through 2.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning.
So obviously the second question was there a plan for the universe? Did it have a meaning or steps behind it? So that verse, the Word was with God, the Word being His plan for us, the gospel, everything that we know about Him thus far, that is His plan, that is what it was at the beginning, and at the beginning all of His ideas were there with Him. So the next verse that you'll be reading is Hebrews 3 verse 4.
For every house is built by someone, but God is the builder of everything.
All right, so obviously the next question is, was there a planner? As the builder of everything, the builder of the universe, and all the other verses that we've said, this verse just clearly says, it really just kind of says it flat out, God is the builder of everything. So the last question was, does the planner precede the universe? Which, if you'll turn to Jeremiah 32:17, just that first verse, if you would.
Sovereign Lord, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for you.
Can you read that one more time, please?
Sovereign Lord, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for you.
So the last question might seem a little bit unneeded, was does the planner precede the universe? Because obviously if he created it, he would have to. But this kind of just drives the point home that obviously, yes, he was the creator, he was there. Therefore, he has to precede the universe. So that's all we need in the Bible for currently, at least thus far. So now that we've established through contextual data that God was there at the beginning, the universe did have a beginning, there was a plan, he was the planner, and he predated the universe as a whole. What I'm going to do is go over some kind of ideas that a lot of people use to kind of trip up people who might be struggling in their faith, such as falsehoods that people will spread about the gospel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you 5 following statements, and I want you to tell me after I finish them whether or not you think they're true or whether you think they're false. Don't feel bad, just tell me your first initial gut reaction. All right, so the first one. The books of the New Testament were written centuries after the events they describe.
False.
False, okay. Cleanliness is next to godliness in the Bible.
True.
Okay. According to the Bible, the earth is flat.
False.
All right. The earliest New Testament manuscripts go back only to the 4th or 5th centuries AD. Just go with your first reaction.
True.
True? All right. The Bible teaches that the earth is the center of the universe.
False.
All right. So we have 2 true and 3 false. You said cleanliness is close to godliness in the Bible, and you said that the earliest New Testament manuscripts go back only to the 4th or 5th centuries. Don't feel bad. None of these statements in here were true at all. They're often used to trip up people, kind of to discredit the Christian faith. Regarding cleanliness is close to godliness, all you have to do is go into any Bible app, type in that phrase, no verse is going to show up. It doesn't show up in the Bible. Now, on the last one, the earliest New Testament manuscripts go back only to the 4th or 5th centuries AD. By this time, the first canon New Testament, the first 27 books that we had already been selected. I'm going to dive in a little bit into history. You kind of just know how I am. But Irenaeus, he was a disciple of John, who was obviously a disciple of Jesus. So he has a direct line from Jesus through discipleship to him. And this man, Irenaeus, is the one who decided upon the fourfold gospel. So by this time, a full New Testament biblical canon had already been selected. So obviously, none of these statements are true. Every one of them is false, based on either historical research or just, knowledge. But next, I want to talk to you a little bit about free will, go into a bit of the abstract. Yeah, I know, crazy stuff. It's a common trope, I guess some should say, where if a non-believer, typically an atheist, comes out and they say, okay, well, if God was real, why would anything bad happen in the world? Like, why would there be evil people in the world? And the simple truth of that is that God gave us free will, and that free will is what allows us to choose to go and follow Him, instead of just making it to where we're born, we die, and we go to heaven. Free will was what propelled Adam and Eve to commit the original sin of eating the forbidden fruit, which led obviously to them being kicked out of the Garden of Eden. All right, so next, and this might get a little bit heavy, but when we acknowledge this stuff, faith obviously comes. You answered the questions. Does the planner precede the universe? And the answer was that was yes. But another thing that people use to trip up Christians, typically newfound Christians, but people of all ages, is they try to say that the Bible is not a historically accurate document. It is not a true primary source, which in actuality it is. So I'm going to go over several real-world events that actually did happen, proven with new or recent findings that can solidify their validity. So first off, we'll start with the Egyptian Empire, which obviously we know the Israelite people were kept under, and Moses eventually freed them out. But it's well documented that people traveled to Egypt during famine for food because the Nile flooded and it was very fertile ground. So obviously we know that Joseph and his family went there, and that's what eventually brought all the Israelite people to the Nile. So we know that that's a fact, that at least people did go to Egypt during times of famine, which we're told in the Bible in the last few chapters of Genesis. Next, in Egypt and various places, but this one in particular, there is a papyrus, which is a kind of paper, which shows a wealthy Egyptian with 77 Semitic slaves. Do you know what Semitic is?
Yes.
Okay. Hebrew, just... Next, we have the Babylonian Empire, which is famous for the Babylonian exile, which obviously saw several Israelite people taken out of Israel. There's new evidence of the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem. Recent archaeological findings have shown first-hand accounts on small scrolls that were often fit around people's necks as a way of carrying messages of people chronicling the events of the siege of Jerusalem at the hands of the Babylonian Empire. Next, of course, is the Assyrians. There's several secular sources, so not really from Israelites themselves, but of Assyrians at the time who did say, all right, the Hebrews, we did fight the Hebrews, we eventually took them over. So it's there. it's not, granted, it's not as much so as the Egyptian and Babylonian, but there is definitely evidence that there was conflict with the Hebrew people. Next, of course, we have the Roman Empire, which is very famous. It's the time that Jesus was born, died. I mean, that was the empire of the world. It was the only superpower at the time. Countless evidence of people, Jewish, secular, Roman, non-Roman, like people knew of Jesus, people told of Jesus. Obviously, I mean, the Bible itself, in that account, though it doesn't go into great detail with the Babylonian and the Assyrians, it does go into great details regarding its time in the Roman Empire, which, again, the entire New Testament takes place when the Roman Empire is at its peak, around the 1st century AD. So, I don't know if you quite remember this, but I have been babbling on for a little bit, so I'm going to give you a little bit of time. That initial flow chart that we did in the very beginning, I'd like you to draw it, see if you can pull it back from memory. So if you could, I know you got a piece of paper here. I'd like to just see you do it. Remember that one idea will flow into the next. Just a little bit of context. I'll wait until you're done. But
Okay.
Currently don't need that. Happens. First two are looking good. Now again, I just want to reiterate while you're finishing up that to question your faith in any way, whether it be historical, philosophical, is a completely natural thing. Again, I've been told by several times, people in my church, family members, that if you don't question your faith, it's not strong faith. That in order to question it is to become stronger. So it's a very good thing that you're actually, if you're having these troubles, it's good to approach it and talk to someone, but it's something that is very natural to have.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so you have beginning. Was there a beginning? Yes, no. You answer obviously yes. Created and planned? Yes and no. Yes goes to, is there a creator and a planner? Yes and no. Obviously you picked yes. And a pre-existing being, which obviously would be the creator and the planner. And you hit yes, and obviously that goes to God. A little bit of context. The first two answers, the beginning, is there a beginning? No. And was it created or planned? No. If you'd answered no to that, that would have led you to atheism, which is obviously a disbelief in God or any higher power. As far as creator or planner, if you'd answered no for that, or a pre-existing being, if you'd answered no for that, that would have taken you to agnosticism, which is a unsure, you were unsure whether or not there is a creator or not. But I hope that what I've been able to do, you circled yes, which took you to the fact that there is a God. So hopefully through both contextual with the Bible verses we went over, historical, and a little bit of debunking some falsehoods that have been spread around about the Christian faith. Hopefully I've managed to help you at least on your journey towards understanding and not doubting your faith and coming out of this, whatever lull this is. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Shake your hand. All right. 1407, that's good.